Hey guys, it's Richard here. In this video, I'm going to teach you the key principles that all of my clients have learnt from my Freedom of Being a coaching program on how to communicate in a relationship and save it from falling apart. There are many reasons why communication and conversations are difficult, and one of the main ones is literally the fear of starting them in the first place, the fear of having the conversation that you know you want to. And also the ability, have you got the ability to manage your state, your emotions, if things don't turn out how you hoped? And really this is something I'm seeing a lot in my private Facebook group. Lots of conversations are going on, and really, there's certain comments, fear of expressing feelings honestly, getting over the fear to actually start them, trying to maintain composure, not lose yourself in the midst of the conversation, or tend to avoid conflict. And really, that's such a common trait to kind of avoid that, to avoid the difficult conversations that we need to have in life. But if we maintain that, if we stay in that space, we're never going to get what we truly want. One, what ourselves, and two, the relationships that we really seek at the core of us. So in today's video, you're going to learn the common reasons why our members find beginning conversations difficult. Why are they challenging in the first place? The second thing you can learn is understanding the traps that keep you effective. And the third thing you learn is how to have difficult conversations. In case you're new to my channel, I'm Richard, and I help impact-driven professionals who are lost with direction and self-doubt to identify and stop repeating negative behaviors so they become clear, more effective, and have greater impact within their life. Just to remind you, if you can subscribe and click the bell, that way you'll be notified each and every week. Before I begin this week, I want to let you know that our free masterclass on the proven 7-step process to become clear, more effective, and have greater impact in your life is now open. So if you want to join the masterclass or submit your application for the Freedom of Being coaching program, make sure you stick around to the end of that masterclass because there'll be announcements on how you can do both of those. On to part one of today's video. Common reasons why community members find conversations challenging. I think it's really important to start here by sharing some of the key areas where the members in our community are finding it difficult to begin their conversations. And the main reason I want to share that is to make you aware that limiting beliefs and self-doubt are really, really common, especially with people that you perceive are really confident on the surface. And I kind of liken that to the duck analogy. If you picture a duck sitting on a lake, really still lake, and the duck is very, nicely poised, underneath their feet are going crazy. And that's how I liken it to many of the members and myself. Still to this day, there are certain situations that I spot that in myself. But of course, I've got the tools to manage that now. And so diving into this, some of the key areas of the difficult conversations, the first one is expressing your needs in a relationship. Maybe you or your partner haven't been spending too much time together, too much quality time together anyway, and you're frustrated, you're unsatisfied, you're unfulfilled in that relationship. So how do you start that conversation? That's one key area that's coming up within our community at the moment. The second one is frustration at your situation. Maybe you're overwhelmed, you're exhausted, you're unfulfilled in what you're doing, whether that's your professional life or again in certain areas of your personal life. And the third really common area is negotiating your professional value or transitioning away from your role into a self-employed role. And so the idea of that is that you want more, you want to be remunerated more or paid more money, or you want to move away from your employed position into more of a consulting area. That is a key area that many people find very challenging, and really what sits underneath that is self-worth. If you have low self-worth, then you're going to undervalue yourself and you're not going to be getting the value that you're seeking. And so what sits underneath this really is fear. So fear of expressing our feelings honestly, fear of losing composure, fear hurting or ultimately losing that other person. We're going to dive into that in the next section. Fear of not getting what you want, anticipation of it going badly, managing anxiety and emotions to be able to communicate effectively. And the last one is going to the conversation feeling you need to meet a specific end goal. Now, maybe some of those, all of those resonate with you in some form. Maybe you're rubbing up against that at the moment in some area of your life. But just to let you know, these are really, really common. And I see these so much with the people I work with. And so that's why I wanted to lay it out, to give you almost some inspiration that if you are feeling these emotions, you're not alone at all, and it's very, very normal. On to part 2 of today's video, understanding the traps that keep you ineffective. Looking at the way we communicate and looking at the way we have dialogue with each other, it's really a very interesting area to look at. And whether you spent any time looking at it or not, hopefully you'll begin to, after this, you're going to find this an area of interest. And before we engage, there are assumptions that we all have. And this is generally speaking, of course, and kind of the common themes that have come up from the clients that I've worked with. So 3 common assumptions. The first one is that your conclusions are always based on fact. So everything that you feel you've come to an answer on, the assumption is that you've based them on clear fact. The second assumption is that people know exactly what you mean. So from your point of view, you'll be expressing a situation, you'll be expressing what you want, what you think you want, and you're assuming that that person understands you exactly in the same way that you are trying to get that across. And the third assumption is that you've been clear enough, you've been emphatic enough, frequently enough to get your point across. So you've said it a few different ways, you've been very energetic with it, you've kind of really, said it over and over again just to make sure that person knows. And you're assuming because you've done that, again, that person is understanding you very clearly. When in fact, the reality is very, very different. The first reality is that at the root of every miscommunication, for every misunderstanding, is an assumption. All of our assumptions are the reasons why we miscommunicate and misunderstand each other. We bring this stuff to the conversation before it's even happened. We have our assumptions all laid out in our mind before the conversation has happened. The second thing is our beliefs affect how we interpret data. So we select data, and this is based on something called the ladder of inference. We dive into this in great deal in the Freedom of Being coaching program. But to cover it, we select data. This is how all of our conversations, all of our decisions are made. We select data on what we think is accurate. And then we form assumptions, conclusions, beliefs, and actions. And so our beliefs affect how we interpret data. So our predetermined beliefs are going to affect the data that we see, affect the information that we have that's requiring us, that's driving us to want to have this conversation. And again, we're going to dive into an example in part 3 of this video. And the third reality is that we over-rely on our past experiences and our own limited frame of reference. Again, we're carrying so much history into a conversation that's going to be clouding that unique, specific topic that you want to talk about. And so just to map this out a little bit, thinking about the history and thinking about all those assumptions and everything, we're only really in one of 3 places. We're either in the past, we're either in the deep now present, or in the future. Now the past is painful past or perfect past. We're fantasizing about the good old days back then, or we never want to go back to that situation because it was so bad. And so if you bring that into a conversation, the fear factor of, this needs to change because I don't want to go back there. Like this apprehension and anxiety and anxious energy could potentially be brought into the conversation. Now the future is fantastical future or fearful future. And again, that sense of, if only we can get there, it's going to be wonderful. Or we need to stay exactly where we are because otherwise it's going to go really bad. And, again, fill in what's relevant for you. But the idea that, again, those past or the future are taking us away from the deep now. And the deep now being the very aware, conscious listening to understand. The deep now being not in the past, not the future, but present with that person or people in that conversation where you're utterly open, you're open to hear what they have to say so you can understand where that person's coming from. And so without understanding those kind of 3 areas where we inhabit all of the time, we'll be switching in and out of them. Ideally, we want to be getting to the deep now most often. We're going to influence what we're bringing into a conversation. The second thing I want to bring up is the AAA trap. And so this is fundamentally what makes us very, very ineffective as well. And so the AAA trap, the first one is that we avoid. So we've put off this conversation for such a long time, procrastinated, that it's got to a point where it has to be had, and maybe the situation around it has got to a dire state. Maybe that, it's been put off for so long that things have escalated so much that where it could have been sorted out before, now it's just damage management. That's A, so that's avoid. The second A is accommodate. And accommodate is all about people pleasing. We're fearing that if we say our truth, we're going to lose that person in our life, whether that's intimately, whether that's a friendship, whether that's professionally. We're going to damage our professional relationships if we bring this topic up. And the third A, is we attack. And we attack because we've put it off, we've tried to people please, which is draining our energy even more, and now our back's against the wall. And now we begin to lash out. And this is where the conversations where we say the things we don't want to say, we don't mean, and it just becomes a big mess. And so that's the AAA trap. And lastly, kind of not knowing how to set your boundaries. How can you have a conversation if you don't know where your boundaries are and you don't know how to set them, or ultimately you don't know how to say a positive no? And so there are three key areas of what leaves us limited, why we become so ineffective in our communication. And also not knowing what you want. That really ties into the boundaries. If we don't have the boundaries, we don't know where we are. Two, the other person doesn't know where we are, where we stand by and what we stand for. And three, we don't know what we want in the first place. So they're key fundamental areas on what keeps us ineffective and what keeps us limited. On to part 3, the final part of today's video, how to have effective conversations. Before we dive into the real example, I'm going to share with you the principles. It's a 4-step principle of how to engage in a proper conversation or an effective conversation. Now, the first step is how are you making sense of the situation? We've touched on it a little bit before, but where is your state? Are you present? Are you in the deep now? Are you held back in the past, or are you in the future somewhere? Where are you before you engage in that? And 1, identifying where you are, and 2, what strategy are you using to bring yourself into the present moment? To become relaxed, but also to downgrade your maybe anxiety if you're anxious about a conversation, if you're worried, if you're fearful, if you're angry maybe. It's no good bringing that into the conversation because it's going to break down very, very quickly, and it's not going to really get to what you really want. Also, selecting accurate information. What are the assumptions you're making? What assumptions are you bringing with you? So to be aware of that, to know that your state, what is your state? And 2, what assumptions are you bringing into this conversation? What are you clouding the conversation with versus what the actual facts that you have? Like I said, we're going to dive into conversation to help embed this for you. So the second step and the second principle is knowing what you want from the conversation. And this is really about the core need at the core of you. What are you seeking? What do you want from the interaction? What is the true outcome that you want? The third one is how are you going to show up? And meaning, do you really want to be effective in this situation to come up with a solution? Or are you trying to be right? And the fourth one is how to say a positive no. Okay, let's dive into this situation. And this situation example I'm going to use is an intimate one, a relationship, but it could also be in a professional setting. And just to make you aware that relationships or in a professional setting, at the core of you, that issue at the core of you is going to come through in both settings. So don't think that just because it's professional, you've got to put this professional face on. At the heart of you is still coming through. And this is one of the key reasons why it's so important to get to understand yourself on a deep level. And so this example is maybe you and your partner have been really busy lately. Maybe you're not really spending much quality time together. You're not really seeing each other that much. You get in from your busy day. Maybe you've got kids. You have to, prepare dinner, bath time, put the children to bed, and then you might have a little bit more work to do. So you keep working for half an hour, maybe an hour, and then you finally sit down. You mindlessly don't really talk to each other. You mindlessly need to decompress. You've had a busy day. You want to decompress, and how you need to decompress, or what you think you need to decompress, which is leading to you not being intimate together, or at best you're having a quick fling and then rolling over and going to sleep. Now, on a deeper level, when you see that, you're probably angry. Maybe there's a sense of anger on the surface. When you start to look at that a little bit deeper, there's a frustration. Maybe you're bored. Maybe you're starting to feel ignored. And then you look a little bit deeper, you could be feeling undervalued or unattractive. And so getting to the core of you, what is this core element of your emotion? And maybe that's loneliness. Maybe you're feeling abandoned. And if you spend time looking at it, maybe this is an old wound. Maybe this is showing up in different environments, or it's a familiar feeling in a relationship where you're feeling abandoned or unattractive or not. And it's not about just bringing awareness to that, to be there and be curious. Oh, that's interesting. This is something I've experienced in different areas of my life. And so to be aware, we're talking about accurate data, what are the assumptions? If you don't become aware of what's at the core of you, you're bringing this old stuff into a conversation. And so to dive into assumptions and the accurate data, how do we get some clarity on the assumptions in this situation, and of course the accurate data? So the assumption of this is that you're being ignored. Your assumption is that you're unattractive, and the assumption is that you're undervalued. These are the stories that are going on within you. This is before we even start the conversation. Whereas the accurate data that you have is that, one, you know that you're both tired, and two, you know that you're both busy right now. Your schedules are busy. That's the accurate data. The next thing we want to look at is, well, what do you want? And looking at this situation, maybe someone wants to feel seen and reconnect. They want to reconnect to their partner. They want to reconnect to that partnership that they have because they love that person deeply. How are you going to show up then? This is the next question to ask. Are you aiming to prove your partner how much they're ignoring you? So are you going to turn up to be right? If you're aiming to prove how much you've been ignored, how much you feel undervalued, how much this other person is doing to make you feel like that, you're showing up to want to be right. Whereas if you want to show up to be effective, you're aiming to understand what's actually going on for that other person. Where are you? What's going on for in your life right now? Why are you busy? What are you working on? How can I help? I want to create a reconnection between us because I feel like we've drifted. The story I'm telling myself is that we've drifted, and I want to connect back with you. In any relationship, if you're in a relationship that you value and you want to do, these can be challenging conversations, but they're going to bring you back together. And so be aware of that. Are you trying to prove your point, to be right, and this is what you've done to me? Or are you trying to be effective? Do you want to open up a bridge to reconnect on all levels? And then how to say a positive no. So this is all about boundaries, and this is a really important step because it's about setting your boundaries and committing to creating something together. And so the first one, what don't you want in this situation? So looking at this example, that person doesn't want to continue getting in at night, not really talking, sitting in front of mindless TV. So that's what they don't want. So you'll know is that you don't want to continue to spend meaningless time watching meaningless television. However, there's a positive to this. This can be then said, but I do want to commit to selecting something that stimulates you and I, so we can watch that together on an agreed number of evenings. So you're committing to, yes, I do like watching shows or programs or documentaries. I want to commit to one that's really interesting for both of us, and I want to commit to one or two, whatever evening a week, so you can commit to enjoy that show together. And then the final part to the deeper yes is about committing to a proper date night. A date night where intimacy can just happen without a goal, without an end result in place. There's no pressure, there's no fixed end goal to happen. It's just a space, minimum, say 60 minutes of intimacy where you can reconnect. And so that clear process of, one, understanding the situation. So what's the core emotion? Two, assumptions versus accurate data. Three, what do you want? 4, how are you going to show up, right or effective? And then 5, how to say a positive no. Being clear with your boundaries and then committing by a deeper yes. The core yes is that you want to reconnect. But the no is, I don't want to waste time in meaningless TV. And so that's the process. And some questions to ask yourself moving on from this video. Are you trying to be effective or are you trying to be right? Are you trying to co-create something with the other person? Are you looking to understand the other person, or are you trying to push your stuff over without wanting to understand their point of view because you feel so hard done by? And that's never gonna, it's just gonna constantly lead to negative conversations. Are you aware of your internal state in this moment and during those conversations? And last one, how are you showing up? Are you in it just for your own selfish gain, or do you want to come together? Maybe that's more in a professional setting. But just some questions to begin to ponder on and to begin to think about. If you have some conversations that you know you need to have and want to have, just some reflections for you, something to try differently. If you want to learn more about these processes, then feel free to join our masterclass, the proven 7-step process to become clear, effective, and more impactful in your life. I literally show all of the exact steps and processes that all of my clients have used to get incredible results for themselves. They've learned and applied the system to continue to free themselves to become clear, effective, and impactful. So if you want to join the masterclass or submit your application, go ahead and click the link that's either above my head right now or below the description of this video. And finally, if you want to join a community where you can ask questions, hear other people's points of view on many other topics, including this, all aimed at becoming clear, then please feel free to join a private Facebook group where you can find again the link below. I'd love to hear what you think of this video. Please like it, please share it. It really helps this channel out, reach more people. And thank you again for joining me, and I'll see you again on another episode.